Hello and welcome back to Read Becca. Today we're going to talk about ogres, but not your traditional fantasy ogres. We're talking Ogres, the novella by Adrian Tchaikovsky. Now, this is not quite out yet. It'll be out mid-March, but I requested an advance copy for honest review from Solaris and NetGalley, so thank you to them for granting this to me, and I enjoyed it overall, I would say. It's definitely a heavy and thought-provoking novella. For scope, I read a book that was over 300 pages in about the same amount of time in the same week. This one is less than 150 pages, so it's slim but very thought-provoking. So this one is all about this village leader's son, Torkel, who is kind of the restless rich kid's son. He hangs out with outlaws and doesn't really want to follow in the footsteps of the traditional village life. And the village is a pretty calm, peaceful place, except for when the ogres show up. So these ogres periodically will come around and collect taxes and take the goods and produce of the villagers. And that's just kind of the way things are. Nobody seems to really think about it, and everyone accepts it because they have peace, even if it is an oppressive peace. So Torkel doesn't want to accept that, though, and he is resisting submission being his lot in life when one day he decides to stand up for himself, and that completely changes his whole future. So I think this is a very thinly veiled slavery narrative, to the point that while I was reading it, I paused to watch some videos and watched a vlog by G.K. Reads, who was reading The Prophets, and that is a historical fiction novel about slavery. And the things that she was saying describing the story could have been describing this book. That's how similar it is, even though we're in this very unreal world. So many parts of this are really tied back to real historical depictions. The ways that religion is completely entangled with oppression, medical experimentation, even when Torkel is kind of elevated into a position that's higher than his role as a villager. He still finds himself dealing with situations of medical experimentation, of still being compelled to do terrible things on behalf of the ogres. And so we see elements of things like house slaves, where they were separate, but they were still viewed as kind of subhuman, and that plays out here. The ogres, of course, don't actually see themselves as ogres. They see themselves as landlords and masters, and that's what they call themselves. So there is this contrast of two worlds, depending on which class you're in, really. And the ogres really see the way things are playing out as the natural order of things. They're stronger and bigger, and they have this magic that the villagers don't, which we very quickly know is not quite magic. But beyond the past, this looks toward the future as well, in talking about things like gene editing and climate change. So it has a lot of really heavy topics to discuss within this very short and tight framework. I think that Tchaikovsky does some interesting things where it's common of his storytelling style to obscure the world building at first and then slowly reveal it in layers. And he does that here, but for me it seemed very obvious what was coming. It's clear within pages, I think, that the ogre magic is really truly just technology and science. And so I think we knew that very quickly. I think a lot about the plot was very on rails, but what was most powerful for me was the way it engaged with the actual grounded topics, more so than this fantastical world building that he was doing. The topics of slavery and workers' rights in the past and today, I think, were so imminent and timely. This is clearly a heavy critique on capitalism, and the power of resistance comes through here so strongly that I think it's going to be an evocative read for you. I think this would make a great book club book because it is so short, but beware that it is extremely gruesome and bleak at times, because this does engage with the darkest parts of humanity in those facets. And really how they feel that oppression is the natural way of being. So I think this was a powerful read. I think it's a very engaging read as well. It being written in second person perspective means that although Torkel is the subject, there is a bit of a real reveal as to whose perspective we're in. And I think doing that meant we get really pulled along in this story as we're hearing this leader's son find out that everything that he thought about the order of the world is wrong, and finding out why. And that's really powerful. So I think this had a great deal to say in a very small package, and I think it was quite effective at doing that. So I think that's all I have to say for today. Thank you so much for watching.